It's estimated today that family carers in Ireland number in excess of 500,000 people, and our carers do incredible work. They look after family members who are ill or have dementia or have a disability, and it's estimated that carers save the state 20 billion every year. But our family carers feel forgotten about, ignored, taken for granted and, in many cases, worthless. The past year has had an unprecedented negative effect on carers. This time last year, when day services for elderly people and day services for people with disabilities and the schools all closed, the full burden of care was left on the family carer. And due to the restrictions and the limitation of families interacting, family carers were left in the position that they could not even rely on other members of their own family to help out. And now, 1 year on, after this tremendously difficult year, when the invaluable work our carers could be recognised by inclusion on the prioritisation for the vaccine, they are left out again. And every year when the winter flu jab is administered to elderly or medically vulnerable people, the family carers offer the vaccine at the same time. So why could this not have happened this time? So I think it's imperative the vaccine is offered to all family carers. If the carer contracts COVID, they will not be in a position to provide care, and I'm asking you, who will look after the person that needs care at that stage? Respite for carers is vital, and yet it varies so much from place to place throughout the country, and in many cases is very, very limited, if at all available. Respite needs to be tailored to meet the needs of the family, as one size does not fit all. This could vary from weekend to evening care or in-house assistance. Many carers tell me their respite is booked only to have it cancelled at short notice if an emergency case arises. This should not be allowed to happen. There needs to be sufficient spaces made available to cater for the emergencies and for those who are booked into respite. And the application process for the carers allowance takes far too long. I mean, carers can be left waiting for months for a decision on the allocation of the payment, and that needs to be addressed. Carers should also not have to go searching or inquiring about what supports and services are available to them or their family. They should be provided with that information as soon as they begin working as a carer. I've met carers who did not know that they could claim the domiciliary care allowance, for example. One woman didn't know about it until her son was in his 20s. Also, parents of children with autism should not be denied the right to the domiciliary care allowance. I think every case needs to be adjudicated independently. It is also imperative that training is provided to all carers so they know what to expect from certain conditions or disabilities and be best placed to provide the support needed. The day services for people with a disability or for older people in society must be resumed at full capacity as soon as possible, and transport to these services must be provided free to all those with a travel pass who use public transport, and that includes local link services. The income supports for carers are totally inadequate. The carers allowance is a means-tested payment, and the threshold on which the test is based has not been changed in 12 years, despite wages and the cost of living having risen substantially in that time. This threshold needs to be raised immediately. The carers allowance itself is not sufficient, and many dependent on this payment are in constant risk of poverty. Many carers have pointed out to me that they are really working for approximately €1 an hour, because when they take into account that they work 24 hours, 7 days a week in several cases, that's all it works out at. I am calling today for an increase in the carers allowance, an increase in the means test threshold. The carers allowance or the carers benefit should be extended to the self-employed, and also an increase in the respite support grant as well, and that should come with an option of being paid in 2 separate payments. There should also be a discretionary fund introduced to help carers to cover the costs linked to COVID, such as the extra costs for electricity and heat due to the family being confined to the house for practically most of the year. And I ask, what happened to the government support of €75 per year to assist persons with medical incontinence that was announced in 2017? The GP card should be extended to all carers also in receipt of the carer support grant. And emergency talk therapy funds should be provided to ensure that carers have access to an accredited counsellor on referral from a GP. And just finally, the National Carer Strategy was introduced in 2012 on a cost-neutral basis, which basically means no funding was allocated to the implementation of the strategy at that time or since. Now, the excuse given at the time was that we were coming out of a recession. However, we are now 9 years on and the strategy is still not implemented. The government have made a commitment in the current programme for government to do so, so you must be held to account on that promise. So update and implementation of the strategy is imperative. Thank you.